Erased Destiny 2, The Knower. Prologue, Consequences. At the Crystal Palace, in the Seeker's Quarters, in the office once occupied by Fidelis and then Saskiel, Sonja glanced once at the chaotic and not very detailed mission report, once at its author, who was floundering in an explanation.
You were supposed to catch Jared, not kill him. Why did you shoot him? Why didn't you bring his body? Or at least the body of your dead colleague? We could have resurrected him. According to the code, you should return here immediately, not visit the healer, not clean up the base.
Impatient with the lack of answers, the vampire looked into her subordinate's memories. Everything there looked just fine. No traces of any spells, but the story looked too short, and the amount of inner thoughts was lower than it should be. To confirm her suspicion, Sonja asked Aelin to come to her office. The appearance of the mistress of death and mind made the man retreat to the door. The pale face of an ugly aged woman was associated by everyone in the castle with interrogation and the stripping of privacy. To all but the black-robed adepts, who saw in their teacher a calm, somewhat phlegmatic, and perhaps overly cautious instructor. During her guidance, not a single adept was killed or harmed, although safety in classes was the only statistic Aelin managed to raise. No one chose to challenge her to a duel, not even the most displeased with the changes Luna. The death mages awaited Etienne's return, unable to find her in the afterlife. They rightly suspected that she had assumed a new body and was somewhere in their world. And since Etienne had appointed Aelin her successor, no one with the judgment of the most powerful among the black mages dared to argue.
Nicely done. Job of the professional, that is for sure.
Can you restore the original memories?
No. The mage took care about the time delay, and I cannot invoke the memories. See those mismatched branches? The clash took place in a different place. The sound of water in the background. It doesn't match either. I am not talking about the storm, there is something else, like a river maybe.
Aelin telepathically notified Zuzu of the situation, who exceptionally promptly appeared in the Seeker's Quarters. She also exceptionally showed anger that was difficult to explain. After only a dozen seconds of watching the memories, she fumed.
I know who did it. The case is closed.
Zuzu returned to her office. Sonja and Aelin looked at each other. The young seeker took advantage of their indecision to escape the room. It seemed to him that during the mission he had met a girl, maybe a woman, someone as indefinable as the morning fog. He could vaguely remember what this person looked like, what they talked about, what they did together. He shook his head. It had to be a strange dream, nothing more.
What should I do now? I cannot close the case like that.
You heard it. We leave it to Zuzu. It's a bit of a shame. I would love to meet the author of these memories. I haven't seen such a masterpiece since Ishan was gone.
Etienne, do you think that she had returned?
Can you imagine something else upsetting Zuzu so much? It has been more than 15 years already. We should have found something, anything, unless Ishan wants to be found.
Zuzu turned a card in her hand that Pilus had sent 2 years earlier. We have found Etienne. She is trapped in the body of a non-magical girl. She asked me to keep a secret until she is ready to meet you.
How much longer should we wait? Mom, why don't you come back to us? I miss you so much. I miss you so much. Mom?
She changed her robe into a seeker uniform, hid her face in a hood, and teleported to Pillas. The mage was eating a dinner, but seeing the 11th lady of the Crystal Palace, he rose to his feet.
How is Etienne? Where does she live? What does she do?
Lady, forgive me. I don't know. I last saw her at the mayor's house. She was teaching his daughter, Uma. She hunted Jared a few days ago, but after that she disappeared. According to the gossips, she eliminates the bandits in the area.
One look of silver eyes was enough for the mage to run out of the house of magic without a cloak, and Zuzu followed him. Fresh snow crunched under the mage's slippers, soaking the loose robe in which Pillas slept in winter. Few torches illuminated the street plunged into winter darkness. Although it was not very cold, fewer people than usual were roaming around.
This is Maya's house. Etienne lives outside Sintra, that is for sure, but I don't know.
Never mind. I'll ask here.
With an illusion, Zuzu changed her appearance. She could not sense the presence of Etienne, no one endowed with a talent for mind magic. Disregarding the discreet signs given by the servants, Zuzu flew into the building. She floated a few centimeters above the ground, high enough not to soil her clothes, but low enough so that untrained observers would not pay attention to the ruler.
Good evening. Anyone at home?
The mayor and his family are just having dinner. Shall I announce you? Is it something urgent?
I will wait until they finish. I need to talk to Mayor Uriel about Jared's case, but not necessarily in the next 5 minutes.
Zuzu sat down on the guest bench. She rarely waited for anyone, but this time she needed a moment to organize her thoughts. She asked Pillas to keep an eye on Etienne. Meanwhile, the old mage didn't even know where the girl lived. Evidently, he ignored an order for which he should face punishment, if only a symbolic one. Zuzu sighed and stretched her legs out in front of her. However, she quickly hid them under the bench. Elegant, lace-up stilettos clearly did not suit the seeker, ruining the image of the ruler not used to impersonate anyone. After visually correcting her outfit, Zuzu returned to pondering the punishment for Pillas. Not at war with anyone, Zuzu employed more guards than the constantly embroiled in armed conflicts Etienne. Although it was Etienne who was sometimes taken to the Pale Castle to be rescued after particularly ingenious assaults, the priestesses put up barriers in all the rooms of the palace only during Zuzu's reign. The woman hoped that her mother's return would soothe her nerves, that by Etienne's side she would finally feel safe, as she used to when they lived together in the desert. To show Pillas that she was not satisfied with his attitude to orders, she decided to send a large group of fire adepts to Sintra for field training. Satisfied with her decision, she started thinking about Etienne. Ever since Pillas sent the enigmatic message, every day and every night Zuzu contemplated whether she should appear in Sintra or not. She was tempted to at least see her adoptive mother from afar, but what she needed most was support in suppressing Noemi's uprising. And this could not be arranged by correspondence. For Etienne, getting involved in the affairs of the kingdom meant not only having to return to the palace, to her hated cage, but above all, confronting her rebellious daughter. This was something Zuzu would not wish on her worst enemy, let alone the woman she loved. As long as she was able to maintain the magical balance, she did not initiate anyone into her problems. However, she knew that sooner or later, Noemi's actions would become so disruptive that someone would have to stop the rebellious Angelus. The only person who once possessed enough power and knowledge to deal with the troublemaking heirs to the throne was Etienne. The same Etienne who was stripped of her home, body, and power by her own children. Given all that had occurred, Zuzu was not surprised by Etienne's evasive behavior. Perhaps the ninth had forced Pillas into silence, and the mage's punishment was not due at all. Tarred by more doubts, Zuzu got up and started walking down the empty hallway. Since Etienne had modified the Seeker's memory, she had regained at least some of her powers and abilities. But what about memories? What if she didn't remember who she was? Zuzu sat down again as the butler watched her investigatively as if considering asking the strange visitor out of the house. Since Etienne had asked Phyllis for discretion, she was aware of the existence of the Crystal Palace and her connections to it. In that case, it had to be assumed that she deliberately avoided contact with Zuzu. She changed the Seeker's memories so they wouldn't mention her to Sonja. That is, she revealed her identity to them, perhaps to force them to do as she asked. Reflection led Zuzu to conclusion that Etienne was well aware of her past and decided to stay hidden. It was as if she feared meeting her former family. Zuzu couldn't say she didn't understand this reluctance. She knew perfectly well what the last years of her adoptive mother's existence and her passing were like. Tien's decision to face an opponent she could not beat. Not without the power that Elstar had stolen from her.
I am sorry for the wait. What can I do for you?
The mayor's voice snapped Zuzu out of her reverie. The woman stood up, bowed, and arranged her lips into a cool smile. The sight of the uniform caused Uriel a wave of apprehension, which, with a little help from mind magic, Zuzu connected to recent events. She saw everything that Uriel had tried to hide at all costs, his bond with Jared, and also an unusual conversation with a blonde-haired teenager.
Ah, good evening. I hope I'm not disturbing you. I am the supervisor of the Seekers who were here recently. It took them a long time to complete their mission, so I wanted to ask, what impression did they make? Did they properly exemplify their duties?
The foolish scouts never listen to what is said to them. Marigold said that, and I fully agree with her.
Replied, before her father spouted politically correct platitudes. The mayor smiled apologetically and looked for his wife. He wanted Melissa to take him to her room before anyone found out that Jared was his brother, and the action was commanded by a teenage adept.
Who is Marigold?
Local mage, Hume's teacher. Honey, please go upstairs. Let us talk in the office.
Let her stay. Me, please tell me, what happened? And about this Marigold, if you could.
The walls of the corridor covered with frost. Azum chattered about the wonderful Marigold who could handle any situation. Zuzu looked through her memories. She smiled, watching the conversation in the bathroom and the later one with the Seekers. Etienne chose her words carefully. She did not reveal her secrets to anyone. Uriel anxiously listened to Uma's story, but found nothing incriminating him there. He watched the progressive icing of the corridor walls in his house. Finally, he poked them and pointed to the icy efflorescence with his head.
It's not me. I don't have talent for ice. Marigold said that only for earth, fire, and water. That's why she couldn't use some ice sword. She was dueling with Torden the warrior. Too bad you didn't see that.
Oh, I saw it more than once. Marigold had us all in awe. Could you pass on her thanks and a gift from me? Bitter orange oil. She used to like it very much.
That's right. Do you know her?
We are cousins. Since I moved away from here, I haven't seen Goldie, but that doesn't mean I've forgotten her. Unfortunately, Seekers are not allowed to leave the palace without permission from their superiors. Does she live in Sintra? I would love to visit her.
Zuzu watched Umi and Uriel's growing dismay. Both were frantically searching for a reason why a meeting with Marigold could not take place within the next 5 years. Urged on by the gaze of silver eyes, the little girl mouthed.
Marigold lives in Wolf's Room, but she apprentices with a local hunter. That's why she is rarely at home. She said that when she turned 16, she would go to the Crystal Palace.
From Uriel and Yume's memories, Zuzu pieced together Jared's story. Etienne was quite often herself, whenever the situation surpassed the minor Marigold. She wanted to behead Jared, and Uriel wouldn't let her. To ensure that no one would ever object to the judgments of the former ruler, Zuzu hypnotized everyone present in the house. As Maya's family and servants stood motionless, dully staring at whatever was in front of them, Zuzu pulled down parchment, quill, and ink from the palace. In writing, She appointed Marigold as military judge, signed her name, and hid the document behind her breastplate. She withdrew the spell.
I insist that you stay the night. It's already cold and dark. It's not fair to let a guest go without dinner. Tomorrow morning we can visit Wolf's Room, and hopefully Marigold is home.
Did Marigold mention that in the Crystal Palace her family lives?
She said she had friends there, Zuzu, Gabriella, and that she counted on the help of the Lady of the Crystal Palace to regain her lost power.
Zuzu sat down on the bench where she waited for Uriel to finish dinner, to help Etienne regain her power. She had no idea how to do it. Maybe it would be enough to give Etienne back her former body. Since Etienne consciously avoided meeting Zuzu, Zuzu decided not to impose herself. Leave a trace, assure her mother that she was thinking of her, but nothing more. She looked at the hourglass and jumped up.
Gosh, it's so late already. I'll have to explain myself again. I feel wrong to ask you, but could you give Marigold gifts from friends and relatives in the palace? I left them in a bag in the vestibule, and an amulet she once lent me.
Of course, no problem. As soon as I meet Marigold, I will pass everything to her.
Thank you. You have helped me a lot. And this is for you, Mayor. Have a good night.
She slipped the folded roll into the mayor's trembling hands and disappeared. Certain that the letter contained an order to go to the palace for questioning, Uriel hid the document under his jacket. He went outside. For a moment he stood on the steps in front of the door, but the cold was getting to him, so he took a few deep breaths and began to read.
Marigold. A military judge?
The appointment not only meant that Marigold had the right to convict or acquit anyone at her discretion, barring a trial. She could also change the sentence handed down by any other judge. She could behead Uriel, for example, and also deprive Cyril's family of their property. Terrified by the unusually clear vision of the dungeons, Uriel tore up the writ and put the pieces in his pocket. Marigold could not find out about the nomination. Returning to the dining room, Uriel noticed a sack standing in the corner. He paused for a moment, looking at an object that shouldn't have been there. One that a few minutes earlier was not there at all. He pulled the string, and when the cloth fell, he noticed a silver bow. He guessed that it was a gift for Marigold, but was surprised by the intricate workmanship. He was sure it was the most expensive weapon in whole Sintra. Who could have presented Marigold with something as magnificent?